Well, hey there. How we doing? Welcome to the show. Great to have you with us today. IB Nation Sports Talk. We've at least got a few people. We apologize. I'll just get this out of the way right off the bat for some of the people who were on the original stream. We had some back end issues trying to get this show started tonight, so we had to delete the first broadcast that we had scheduled and reschedule another one. I see some people are jumping in right now, so
they're figuring it out because we got smart people. We got smart people in IB Nation, man.
Thanks for coming over. And we always do this up front. We ask you to like and subscribe and rate and all that stuff. But if you could really just, everyone who's in here right now, smash that like button because that helps kind of push the broadcast back up on the YouTube so, people can figure out that it's there and all that kind of stuff. So if you would make sure and smash that like button right now. That would help us even more than usual. But, again, we got started a little bit late and had some technical issues, and we had to delete one broadcast and start another. And I see some people are joining in right now. So that's a good sign. Glad to have you with us here tonight. How you doing, Vince D'Addario?
It has been a whirlwind of a day. I will tell you that, not to get too into it with people, but had to be drug tested today. And,
oh boy, new job. That's right.
All that fun
stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, but I got my security code to the high school, so it's all starting to become very official. They're actually trusting me with all of these different things, and I got my ID, all that. So it's getting real, man. It's getting really real, which is fun. And the best part of the day, though, is I get to talk to you. So been looking forward to this all day.
Back at you, buddy. Ready to go. You light up my life, kumbaya, and all that kind of
that
stuff.
jazz.
So that's right. That's right. So we haven't been to Notre Dame practice. There hasn't been any, media availability last couple days, but tomorrow we'll be back out there in the morning. We'll get to talk to Harry Hiestand. I was about to do his voice, and then my voice it hurt just trying to get down in that gravel mode.
How great is it to hear him at practice?
I know.
I'm just saying, hilarious, absolutely hilarious, man. Just he's going after guys already. No holds barred. He is in. Somebody asked, which position group is in midseason form? That would be Harry Hiestand by himself. His
own position group, just him. That's right. That's absolutely right. So we'll get Harry Hiestand tomorrow. We'll get new defensive line coach Al Washington on Friday, and obviously players from each of those position groups as well. Marcus Freeman's going to do another press conference Saturday. So we've got a lot coming up, and it's going to be a busy week next week as well. So all kinds of stuff going on. We're going to be talking about Notre Dame's linebackers in just a little bit. And again, I'll just throw out please hit the like button and help us out. But it looks like the numbers are kind of jumping up right now as far as the viewership after we had those technical issues early on. Today is a day that a lot of people have come to look forward to. Ryan Roberts, I saw him tweet, "Happy Bruce Feldman's Freaks List Day." And I know that Brian and those guys, they talked about it on Brian's show earlier today. But Bruce Feldman puts out his Freaks List every year, and now if we were back, doing the old radio show, about right now, I'd be playing Rick James Super Freak, and talking about wait, is it Super Freak or is it MC Hammer? Can't touch this, because maybe there's an extra beat in there or whatever. But we can't play real music here because we don't have the money to pay the rights fees and all that.
That's fair
kind of stuff. We don't want the podcast taken down. So we'll just pretend that Super Freak is playing right now.
I've got it. It's in here.
Do you even get the reference, Vince? Do you get the Super Freak reference? Do you know 100%. What song I'm talking about?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I can't. Why if I sing it, do I get in trouble? I don't know. And nobody wants to hear me sing anyway, but I do know that song. Yes.
Super Freaky. All right, there you go.
I got you.
Get a little Vince singing even as an added bonus on tonight's show. So the premise of Bruce Feldman's Freaks List is to spotlight the players who generate buzz inside their programs by displaying the unique physical abilities that wow even those who observe gifted athletes every day. Those are Feldman's own words. That's straight from the beginning of his article. He really didn't, go into any further detail in terms of, the criteria for being on the freak list and stuff, but there's a lot of as he ranked him 1 through 100.
Okay.
And there's a lot of, vertical jump and, pro, shuttle and all these different things that he puts in there, 40 times and all that kind of stuff. So he mentions a lot of stuff, but he doesn't necessarily lay out any strict criteria for how you get on his freaks list.
Okay.
But I think it would be fun to be on a freak list personally.
I mean, I think
I don't know, because then you could just walk around playing Super Freak all the time, right?
I feel like it's definitely something to brag about, because in an era where all we see are lists, just list after list, and it becomes, fodder for our show and other shows and things like that. It's fun, to dissect these things. This list means nothing. Like, it doesn't, there's nothing on the line. There's no, This is just a fun list. You know what I mean? This is great. I love that.
I completely agree. And just real quick, D-Rock Irish. Says, I've been in and out of these chat programs. Are we in or out on Hannafin? What's the latest, chatters? Go to the boards. Right, just
updates.
Go to the board.
Yeah, I assume there's updates over there. Who knows?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I figured there would be.
Yes. After the show, go to the boards. But
of course. Well, unless you can do your multitasking. You know what I mean? I mean, nobody needs to look at this.
Yeah, I mean, you can listen and go to the boards at the same time and read. So, okay. So anyway, Bruce Feldman's freak list, top 100. Here's his top 10. Mazie Smith, defensive tackle from Michigan. Marvin Harrison Jr., really good wide receiver, of course, Marvin's son, Ohio State. Miles Murphy, Clemson defensive end. DJ Johnson, Oregon edge rusher. Will McDonald, a defensive end from Iowa State. Kelly Rigdon, the Georgia running back. Julius Welshoff, defensive end from Michigan. Owen Papo, I don't know if I said that name right. Auburn linebacker. Kalijah Cansey, defensive tackle from Pitt. And number 10, Chris Braswell, linebacker from Alabama. So that's the top 10.
Papo. It looks like Papali. Vince Papali.
Yeah. 3 Notre Dame players made the list. Now, I was almost going to ask you today to see if you could go without, finding out who the 3 Notre Dame players were. How shocked were you, though, when you saw, 1, who the first Notre Dame player on this list was, which I'll get to here in a moment, and 2, who was not on the list?
It was more who was not on the list than who was on the list. Because I could make an argument for the 3 guys that made the list. I mean, I could make that argument. Sure. I don't know that 2 of the 3 would have been at the top of my list, to be honest with you. But I could make that argument that the 3 of them belong on the list. You know what I mean? Right. One of them, absolutely no question about it. The other 2, okay, I see it. But the one that was left off, mind blown. I don't understand.
To me, there were 2 who were left off. And I know, you told me who you're first to come to mind. Right. Basically, I'm scanning through this list going, okay, where's Michael Mayer?
You're right.
And or Isaiah Foskey.
Sure.
I thought those to me are the first 2 guys who came to mind. And Matt D, is backing that up. Foskey, not on the list, is wrong. 11 sacks last year. Not just because he has 11 sacks, because, I mean, look at him.
Right.
He's the definition, either one of those guys, definition of a freak athlete.
Definition. Especially Michael Mayer. Because there's a lot of edge rushers that physically look imposing and can do some pretty amazing things and, of that nature. And so I could see the argument not to have him on there. I don't agree with it, but I could see it. But Michael Mayer is a friggin' specimen. He's 265 pounds. And he looks like a gazelle out there. Like, you don't normally see 265 pounds running around like that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and see, like DT Troll Hunter says, he isn't a burner. Bless you. And I think that maybe that has to do with it, because there are 5 tight ends on this list, and I'll get to them in a little bit. But here's who is on for Notre Dame. At number 38, Cam Hart, cornerback. Long, fast corner who made 42 tackles last season in his first year as a starter, intercepting 2 passes, blah, 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 blah. Okay, stats. Broad jumping, 11'2", vertical jump, 38 inches. Hit 21.7 on the GPS. His power clean peak output 2490. One of the best on the team. See, like these are all numbers that we don't have, you know, access to. So, we don't know how to compare them to these other guys. Riley Mills, 56. I mean, another athletic specimen, and he mentions that he was a discus thrower, shot putter, in high school, and more freaky numbers. He said that he had, let me see, Mills' explosiveness is reflected in his hang clean output of 28.28 and his power clean output of 28.54, both totals higher than his super freaky line mate Isaiah Foskey, 26.74 and 26.96. So, I mean, he has numbers, again, I don't know what those numbers mean or how we quantify or qualify them. I don't know if you exactly know what those mean, but they are both considerably higher than Isaiah Foskey, for example.
And that means Isaiah Foskey was on the radar for this list. I mean,
because he called him super freaky.
Right. His name came up, but maybe he was number 101 and just didn't make the top 100. I don't know. Yeah. But he was at least in the neighborhood, and that's what got Riley Mills on this list, is that his numbers were better than Isaiah Foskey, and so that's how he got on the list in the first place. So, okay, I guess I get that.
But here's what I would have to say about that. This is kind of like when you look at all this, his clean and his shuttle and his vertical and all, this is like going to the combine, right? Because this is nothing against Riley Mills, but we had Riley Mills last week on our list of players who still needs to break out. Isaiah Foskey has already broken out. So even though Riley Mills, and it's great that he's testing with all these numbers, and I mentioned him, the other day, the gun show. I mean, he and Chris Brown, the new defensive lineman from Harvard, have, two of the biggest arms definitely on the defense. I'd put Michael Mayer right up at, in there with him himself. But, again, this is like, okay, testing numbers, but you still have to do it on the field. So,
right.
And
I think like Riley Mills, I would say, is the one guy that I would have 100% had on this list. He's the guy that, when you see him walking around and you see what he's doing on the field.
You're saying of the three that
made it, he would have been by far the one I would have put on there. So he was the one I was referring to before. Again, I could make a case for the other two, but Riley Mills, bar none, I think belongs on there because I think he is a freaky athlete. Yeah. And obviously his numbers back that up.
But he's not a super freak.
And I think his play on the field this season is going to back that up too.
I think it will. So Cam Hart at 38, Riley Mills at 56. One more Notre Dame player on Bruce Feldman's freak list, and that is Lorenzo Styles, the wide receiver, who comes in at number 79 on this list. Lorenzo Styles, like you talk about explosiveness and all that kind of stuff. Sure. And we were talking about the kickoff returns the other day. I really, like watching those guys up close when they were returning the kicks and how they got through the holes. He was one of the two most explosive guys going through those holes. And I think we're going to see really good things from him this year. A squat of 510 pounds for a 195-pound wide receiver. That's pretty healthy.
Yeah. That's massive. That's impressive. Yeah.
Broad jump of 10 foot, 10 and a half, and he hits 22 miles per hour on the GPS. So those are the three, and I've got no problem, obviously, being with them on this list. It just, again, like looking at this list, it seems like a lot of it comes down to testing numbers and stuff like that. But, again, like the other day, I guess it was 2 practices ago, I was out there by the defensive lineman, and, like you talking about explosiveness for defensive linemen, I would say that it was, I think I wrote it down. I know it was Isaiah Foskey, and I'm trying to remember who the other 2 guys were when they were doing like these rip drills and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
they were practicing their rips, you know, for their pass rush, and then they had a gauntlet of kind of those stand-up dummies out there, and they would, you know, smack the dummy as they were kind of zigzagging through them. And Isaiah Foskey had the combination of the loudest thud against those dummies and the most explosive of those defensive linemen going through those dummies on that drill.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can tell but you can see first step, you can see explosion, you can see all that stuff, right? And then that's what jumps out at you with a good number of these guys, to be honest with you. But Riley Mills, you know, Isaiah Foskey specifically, it's
Botello and Justin Adamalola were the other two who were the next two most, you know, the combination of explosiveness and thump going through there.
Yeah, so that would make sense. Absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, those are the guys on the list. You know, we talk about Mayer not being on this list. 5 tight ends made the list. Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion, a high school track star, according to Bruce Feldman. You know, there's kind of a common theme here. Number 27, tight end Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, an elite high school long jumper and triple jumper.
That's if you watched the triple jump before, like that, that takes some serious athleticism and some bounce. I mean, the triple jump is serious, man. Like, that's impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Brock Bowers from Georgia. He's the preseason favorite for the Mackey Award and all that stuff. He's number 45. Number 78, Josh Wiley from Cincinnati, and number 89, Tyler Warren from Penn State. So, you know, like, I guess, you know, again, because we're talking about tight end and freaky and all that kind of stuff, you know, it seems like the track background definitely pushed some of these other guys on there. And that's not necessarily, you know, again, Michael Mayer is fast for his size and all that, but it doesn't sound like he quite, you know, tilted the scale just enough for Bruce Feldman when he's got these other guys who have track and, you know, really, I guess, more elite speed when it comes to tight ends.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and he's going to run away from some people. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He's not slow by any stretch of the imagination. He'll still run away from linebackers and things like that. And frankly, if a DB wants to try to tackle him from an angle, they're a stiff arm away from eating dirt. So I don't care what metric you're using. I'm not saying you, Sean. I'm saying you in general. I don't care what metric you're using. Michael Mayer is a freak, and there's a reason that he should have been the best tight end in the country last year, and he is the best tight end in the country this year. He's a freak, and he's a freak in a great way.
I completely agree with that. I've got no disagreement there at all. And you know, the thing is, you know, kind of like I was just saying, a lot of this stuff we're talking about is combine type testing stuff, you know, with squat, right. You know, and it matters. It helps make you better, but Michael Mayer can play football.
Right.
You know, he might not have quite as elite, you know, and Isaiah Foskey for that matter too. They might not have quite as elite testing numbers as these guys, but we've got film, we've got evidence that says they can go out and play football. So they might have not made the list. And like you said, how important is the list? Well, it's not important at all. I mean, just look at the fact that the Wisconsin punter is on the list for the second year in a row. And part of the reason why, Feldman says, is because he can do something called a Turkish get-up. Have you seen someone do a Turkish get-up before?
All I did was read the description, and it hurt. So yes. Anybody that can do what you're about to describe deserves whatever list they get on. Okay?
I suppose so, even if he is a punter.
That doesn't matter.
That's right. So here's what a Turkish get-up is. And they had the video embedded, so I watched him do the Turkish get-up. So you start with a power clean, and then you do an overhead press with the power clean.
Okay.
And then you hold the bar and the weight up with one arm. And so then what you do, you drop down to a knee. So now you're kneeling with the bar, barbell and the weight up over your head after you've done a power clean. And then with that, you keep it up. I'm leaning away from my microphone. You lay down flat on the floor, And then after you do that, while the bar is, you're still holding the bar up and the weight that's on it, then you stand back up with it, holding the weight up. And then, at the end, you obviously throw the weight down. That is a Turkish getup. And that's what the Wisconsin punter did. And it got him a number 80 ranking on Bruce Feldman's freaks list.
That by itself, he deserves to be on that list, because
maybe so.
There's a lot of people in this country, they can't even do that with the bar, let alone the bar with weight on it.
There's a lot of people, who couldn't do it without the bar, I'm guessing. So
that's what I'm saying. So just saying.
Yeah. Try a Turkish getup tomorrow morning when you get out of bed.
Right.
Okay, Give me a prediction.
Okay.
Who from Notre Dame that we're projecting is going to be here next year? Who might be on the list that's not on the list this year?
Tobias Merriweather deserves to be on that list, I think. He's got some freakish qualities,
Yeah.
I think you could potentially put either tackle on there, right? Because they're both coming back.
Thought about them, especially Fisher.
Yeah, because you got that one video of him like sprinting on the before he got hurt, obviously, but he was sprinting on the treadmill, and the boy can pick him up and put him down, right? Jaden Mickey, I don't know. He's a little he's twitchy. He's a good athlete,
right?
But he's small. So
like Cam Hart is a lot longer, and I think in addition to his numbers, I think that's part of what got him so high on this list. Yeah,
absolutely. Trying to think of some other guys in the freakish category. You could look at maybe one of the linebackers, maybe like Junior Tuihalamaka. Like I could see maybe him. He has some freakish qualities, really long.
Jalen Sneed, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Prince Collie. I mean, they all kind of fall into that mold a little bit. So I could see that for sure.
I thought about this guy too that Irish Chi-Town said, Tyler Buckner. But like Tyler Buckner just looks so like Clark Kent when he is not,
right?
In a football uniform. Now he is freaky fast. There's no doubt about that.
He's twitchy too.
So I'd like to see sort of what he develops into with one more year. And like, again, like not knowing all this testing and all this different stuff, but just with that speed alone, I think he's got a chance potentially to get on there.
Absolutely, he's going to have a bunch of rushing touchdowns this year, so he'll get his name on the board as far as. He'll be on the list of finalists for that top 100, I would think. So I think that's definitely fair. Audric Estime, Matt D. Audric is a freak. Yes, agreed. He is a freak. And,
for sure.
His feet.
I like that.
He's got some of the best feet in the running back room, to be honest with you, even with his size. And so if he can show off that a little bit during the season, I think that definitely has a potential to get him on the list.
Yeah, I think that, like he's someone, especially just because of the build that he has, like if he can, kind of show out a little bit this year, then he gets on the radar and maybe that gets him on. I think it is pretty cool that Notre Dame's got 3 guys in the top 100, even if they're not necessarily the 3 guys who we thought that they would be.
Right, absolutely. Charlie Weiss, this last belt loop is mad at me because I was pushing back on Jaden Mickey. I'm not saying he's not a good football player. He's a really, really good football player. I just don't know that he belongs in the freak category. That's all.
Matt D says, wonder who has the heaviest bench on the team. Anyone know? It's like,
I don't know. Marcus Freeman.
It would be kind of cool if they would release maybe, especially because we're hurting for things to talk about, right. Before training camp starts. Like if they would, they're obviously letting Bruce Feldman know what these numbers are and he's publishing them. It'd be kind of cool if, especially, like maybe the top half or something like that, or the top guy at each position, even, something like that, just to kind of gauge sort of what these guys are doing.
I think it'd be fun to see, to be honest with you.
I think so as well. Because, most of the time when the guys who do go to the combine and stuff like that, they get that number and it's like, oh, okay. And sometimes if they are a really freakish looking athlete, it's like, well, that makes sense. But other times you really have no idea what ballpark these guys are going to be in for some of these different things. So I think it'd be kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about Notre Dame's linebackers. We touched a little bit on it yesterday, especially the defense as a whole. Al Golden is doing something this year. And, he said that he was kind of tasked by Marcus Freeman this year to build depth. And we saw some of this last year where, like the inside linebackers specifically they were kind of trying to make him interchangeable. And, we've seen this year where Al Golden has talked about that with the safeties as well. But like Al Golden, when he came out with the media the other day, was talking about how, like this started with J.D. Bertrand saying, well, he's basically played all three linebacker positions in camp. Most of it's been either middle linebacker or will, but they're basically playing all over the place. Like they've had Jack Kaiser moving inside and playing one of the two, inside linebacker spots. And Kaiser has even played a little bit of Viper so far. So they're moving these guys around doing this stuff, and not just with the positions, but also like sometimes the three will play with the number 2 unit, or the number 2s will play with the 1s and stuff like that. So they're building, trying to build depth for one thing. And, like when you look at the top of the depth chart now, you got Bauer, you got Bertrand, you've got Kaiser, and you've got Maris Liufau as well. So you've got 4 linebackers for 3 spots. And, I don't know about you, Vince, but again, like when we were trying to sort of figure out, okay, what's the number 1 defense when we saw them out there,
right?
This is why it was hard, because on one snap, you've got one set of linebackers, then all of a sudden you've got this different group, and it's like, hold it, Bertrand's playing, Will, and Bauer's over there playing Mike, and what's this all about? So this kind of explains it, but I've got a feeling we're going to see all 4 of these guys quite a bit this year.
I absolutely think that. I mean, I think you've got kind of a 4 for 3 situation, right? And I don't feel like anybody's really pushing Jack Kaiser, and the rover position is so different than the 2 inside positions. So I think you're going to see a lot of Jack Kaiser. I do. And then I think you're going to see the other 3 kind of rotate around for the other 2 spots. I think that's what we're going to see an awful lot of. And I think you're going to see a lot of Bo Bauer. I think you're going to see a lot of Maris Liufau. I think you're going to see a lot of J.D. Bertrand. And they all deserve to play. I mean, Bo Bauer, I'll give credit where credit is due. One of the guys from Irish Illustrated was telling me the other day, he's like, Bo Bauer's been here so long, he committed to Brian Van Gorder.
Wow.
Okay. That tells you how long Bo Bauer has been in the program. Okay.
That's what, 5 defensive coordinators ago at this point?
Like yeah. So it's been a long time that he's been in the program, and he knows what's going on, and he deserves to be out there, and he's earned his spot. And I think Maris still, he's earned his spot with the way he plays, and clearly the leading tackler from last year has earned his spot. So, they're developing depth, like you said. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think, you've got the 4 for the 3, and then after that, you've got really good depth pieces. They're not ready to start yet, but they can certainly come in and give those guys a breather. And I think they're in a really good position as far as that's concerned. When you consider, Junior Tuihalamaka in the middle, you got Prince Kollie playing Will, all of these other guys, the amazing linebacker class that came in last year. You've got depth at linebacker, an amazing amount of depth. And if you're Al Golden and you just walk in that room, you're like, okay, I can work with this. There's the linebacker room there. That's one of the least worrisome spots on the field.
Me too.
Both sides of the ball is the linebacker spot. I love where this group is. And I think they're going to take a step as a group, because, they were okay last year. They were okay. They weren't great. They weren't terrible by any stretch. They were good. They were good. I think they're going to take that next step, and that in turn is going to make this defense take another step. That's exciting to me.
Yeah, I think that front 7 is just going to be lights out this year with the defensive line. And Bertrand kind of talked about that the other day as well, that it starts with that defensive line, and it obviously helps out the linebackers, whatever those guys in front of them can do. And I think it's going to be a really fun unit to watch out there this year. Last year's defense allowed 19.7 points a game, a little over 135 rushing yards a game, and 224 passing yards. So which of those numbers do you think that this year's team is going to have the best chance to improve upon?
it's funny because they open up obviously with Ohio State, and Ohio State is going to challenge every one of those numbers, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
And so you got to look at the long game. That's the biggest thing. You have to look at the long game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think that they have every opportunity to challenge the points, and I think they have every opportunity. They have every opportunity to challenge all three of those. To be honest with you, the points one, I'm going to push back on myself because as I think through it, I think the offense is going to score more points this year, but I think there's going to be some quick scores, and I think they're going to give the other offense an opportunity to score maybe more often. But I'm hoping that number goes down. I want them in the teens. I'd love to see that number around 18. That's where I'd like to see that number. I'm trying to think here. I think the rushing yards, that's a pretty decently low number as it is. 135 is not a bad number. And to be better than that, you're really doing some good things rushing. And so I'll say the rushing yards first, points second, passing third, because I think a lot of teams are going to be playing catch up and a lot of teams are going to be throwing the ball a lot. And I think the passing numbers could be artificially higher.
Yeah.
Not in a sense of the defense is bad, but I just think that teams are going to start airing it out because they're going to be coming from behind. So I'll go rushing yards, points, passing yards.
I'm going to go points, rushing yards, passing yards, basically for the reason that you said. You're right. Ohio State is, they're going to score more than 19 points against Notre Dame, or at least they should. If they don't, then it's going to be a really good year for Notre Dame.
Right.
But you throw that out, you look at the rest of the schedule. I think that they'll probably give up somewhere, in that like 17 and a half points a game. Again, we're talking about over the course of the season. Because like you look at last year, they gave up over 30 points in their first game. They gave up over 30 points in their last game. And I think that there was one other game. Yeah, the North Carolina game where they gave up over 30 points. Otherwise, look at what the average ended up being, 19.7. Right. And again, I think they're going to be really stout up front in the front seven. And just because of what you said, because it's going to be so hard to run against them and teams are going to be playing catch up at the end, the passing yard numbers will probably naturally go up.
So. Like I said, it'll be artificial as far as how good or bad the defense is. It's just the nature of teams are going to be, throwing the ball around a lot. I just think that they're not going to have a choice in the vast majority of the games.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm looking at where we are. You want to go ahead and do rapid fire
now? I'm always ready to dive into rapid fire, baby.
I'm going to lead with a little bit longer question for rapid fire tonight than we usually do. But this is also, like I was talking about Super Freak up top, and like, have you been watching on social media, lately? The Edwin Diaz, the New York Mets closer. Have you seen any of the videos where they've got him coming out, with his entrance song, his walk-up song? It's called Narco by Blaster Jax and Timmy Trumpet. And you remember for a year when we did Rapid Fire on my old radio show, that was our song. The Edwin Diaz walk-up song. That was our song. And it's like, I'm seeing all this. They're tweeting all this stuff in the videos, and I'm listening. And it just hurts my heart, Vince. It hurts me so much that we can't use that song anymore because it's such a fun song. It got us bouncing around and got us hyped up. That's right.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I did see the video on Twitter or wherever. And I was like, man, that's a great song. Where have I heard that song before?
You couldn't even remember?
That was the rapid fire. Like, it's just so ingrained in my head. I remember standing there and I'd be like, da, 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 da. Oh yeah, it's all coming back to me now. So, yeah.
That's right. So I'm, my heart is hurting for Narco by Blaster Jackson and Timmy Trumpet. But anyway, it's rapid fire time. So a Twitter account called Big Game Boomer puts out various rankings that are college football related. Now look, again, you probably take a lot of them with a grain of salt, but whoever this is, they're putting out, all these different college football rankings.
This guy loves his lists.
He does.
About that. He is all about the lists.
He does. And so he's got a list. His latest list is a ranking of the top offensive and defensive coordinator combos in the nation. Notre Dame's Tommy Rees and Al Golden combo comes in 10th. Here's the top 10. Ohio State, Kevin Wilson, Jim Knowles. The offensive coordinator comes first, by the way. Number 2, Baylor, Jeff Grimes, Ron Roberts. Number 3, Georgia, Todd Monken, Will Muschamp. Number 4, Josh Gaddis, Kevin Steele. Number 5, Arkansas. That was Miami. Arkansas is number 5, Kendall Briles, Barry Odom. Number 6, NC State, Tim Beck, Tony Gibson. Number 7, Bill O'Brien, Pete Golding from Alabama. Number 8, Mark Whipple, Eric Shenander from Nebraska. Number 9, North Carolina, Phil Longo, Gene Chizik, and then Reese Golden is number 10. So you look at the list. Are Golden and Reese, are they too high? Are they too low? Are they just about right? What do you think? Vince, can you hear me? You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
There you go. You were going on for a while. So
I was. So what I was going to say was they're both kind of unproven is my point. And Tommy Rees has been there. He's been in the position for a few years, obviously, and he's gotten better and better every year. But this is the first year he's kind of doing it himself. And I don't think anybody can debate that. This is going to be a very telling year for Tommy Rees's offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Al Golden hasn't been a defensive coordinator since I was in college. So, I mean, it's been a long time that he's been calling the plays, right? I think it was 2005 or 2006 or, either way, it's been a long time. Okay. And so I'm okay with them. I'm okay with them having them at 10 for now, but I feel like they're going to rise up the ranks, especially when you look at some of the people that they have above them. I think are a little nutty. Like, really, we're going to put Nebraska ahead of Notre Dame. We're going to put
one of a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think Jim Knowles belongs in the number 1 spot. He has never been a defensive coordinator at Ohio State before. He was good at Oklahoma State. Don't get me wrong. Notre Dame had no problem scoring on him. So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and Kevin Wilson, yes, he's the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He's not running the offense.
In there, yeah.
That's
true too.
So I guess I have a little bit of a problem with Ohio State being number 1 because one guy's new and the other guy doesn't call the plays.
Yeah.
So it's like, so yeah, I've got an issue with some of the people ahead of them. If you would have told me, hey, where do you think they should rank? I'd be like, yeah, about 10. I think that's about right. But some of the people that are above them, I'm like, well, they probably should bump up a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of, and I guess, it's Ohio State, so I don't have a horrible problem. Like you said, Knowles hasn't been at Ohio State before, but at least he's been a defensive coordinator for a while and had some success at Oklahoma State. Like the Baylor guys haven't been around for that long. Georgia, Monken, helped them obviously win a national championship. Now they got Muschamp coming back, and they're again like, this is a guy who's predominantly been a head coach for a while. Sure. Miami is another head scratcher to me because, okay, now you're putting this staff together. They haven't done anything yet. Like Josh Gaddis, solid run at Michigan, but he wasn't Miami's first choice. We know that, right? Mm-hmm. Kevin Steele is another guy who's, he's bounced around. This is his 6th school in the last 10 years now, wow. So I've got no problem with Arkansas. Pittman, Sam Pittman, the head coach, and Briles and Odom have been there with him so far, and that turnaround that they've done, so I think they've kind of proven it so far. The NC State guys being up, high, and the North Carolina guys being that high. Like, what have any of those guys done? Longo did well as offensive coordinator, but let's see what he does without Sam Howell now.
Right,
and
exactly.
Like Gene Chizik is his coordinator. He hasn't coached at all for 6 years. The last time he did coach, he was fired at North Carolina by Larry Fedora. And so you're putting them up there, at number 8. And then I completely agree with Nebraska has no business being on this list. They hired the Pitt offensive coordinator, and Whipple, their defense is actually halfway decent. They bring in the Pitt coordinator because of the fact that the offense, has been so inconsistent and, just at times flat out bad. So I'm surprised that they're at number 9. Again,
the Nebraska staff is this close from getting fired, and
yet
they're top 10. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah. So you pick it apart, but just like you said, Al Golden's got his own questions. So just the fact that they've got, Reese and Golden there at number 10 is like maybe, who knows?
Right. So, like I said, if you would have told me, I'd be like, yeah, they're about 10. I'm okay with that. But then you look at the actual list, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they're more like 7 or 6, and I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Yeah. Okay, so earlier in the show, we were talking about the freaks list. So here's a question for you. Fill in the blank. The most special player on Notre Dame's roster is blank.
This is a tough one because there's a lot of different directions that you could go, and I've been all over the place with this one. I'm going to go with Michael Mayer, and I know we've kind of beat that horse to death, but he's that good. I really think he transcends the position, and he could lead the team in receptions and yards as a tight end, and they've got some pretty talented wide receivers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like because he's versatile, you could split him out, you could put him on the line. He can literally go up against any defensive back or linebacker that you're going to put on him, and he's still going to catch the ball. I mean, when in doubt, throw it to 87. I've got to go with Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think there's any way that you can deny that because of, just like look at how last season played out. And he had the groin injury. He played through it. He was still out there and still put up amazing numbers. And, again, for a tight end who doesn't necessarily have like the Tyler Eifert body type, like a little longer and sleek and all that, to be up there at the top of, of the team in terms of receiving production right up there with Kevin Austin, I think that shows you something, and he's going to be right up there again. And teams are going to have to figure out how to deal with him. And there's going to be so many adjustments for both sides that are all going to revolve around Michael Mayer. Like,
right, absolutely.
When you're playing Notre Dame, your first task is to figure out where 87 is and what you're going to do to defend him to try to take him away. And it's going to be up to Notre Dame, obviously, to prove that they can do other things besides just get him the football.
Yeah, absolutely. As if he hasn't broken out already, he's going to have an amazing season because there was some people in the chat that were talking about how he was underused in the past. I actually think that's accurate. I think he was underused to a degree. And, with the way that they're going to run this offense with RPOs, they're going to be RPO heavy and, all of that different stuff. I really think that you're going to have some options to throw the ball to Michael Mayer in that triple and quadruple RPO option type thing. So he's going to get opportunities, and he's going to get one-on-one opportunities that are he's going to take massive advantage of. And I think he's going to be Tyler Buchner's best friend, frankly, when it's all said and done. Yeah. So he's going to put up numbers. And if he doesn't win the Mackey Award, I don't even know what to say.
Why are you even having the award? Why do you have the award?
Right. The fact that he wasn't even a finalist last year was a crime against humanity. I don't understand that at all. But if he doesn't win it this year, oh my gosh, we'll go pick it wherever the Mackey Award, headquarters are.
Tyler says the Blake Groupie disrespect is real. You talk about an athletic specimen. Yeah.
That's right. It is rare that I've looked a football player at Notre Dame in the eye. I can do that.
I think the underutilized thing is correct. I think sometimes you can outsmart yourself a little bit, and you just got to feed the beast.
Absolutely.
This year,
it's like when you have that dominant down low guy, right? Sometimes it's not pretty. It may not be flashy, but he's going to score for every single time. Get him the rock on the block and watch him go to work. It's the same situation for me. Just get him the ball. He's going to catch it. You're going to move the chains, and it's going to be great.
I agree. Okay, fill in the blank. HBO's Hard Knocks with the Detroit Lions debuted last night. And one of the highlights of the show was head coach Dan Campbell doing up downs with the defense. And that's blank.
refreshing, to be honest with you. I think that's refreshing. I know it's the NFL. I know that it's a job. I know that it's a business. You treat these guys differently. Almost everybody on the team is making more money than the head coach. Or I should say the superstars are making more money than the head coach, which is a weird dynamic all by itself. But the fact that he's willing to get in there and what he's doing is he's trying to form relationships with these guys. He's trying to show that he's not better than them. You know what? I love it. That's refreshing to me. Coaching is all about relationships, and the NFL is very quickly going to the CEO route. You know what I mean? Where it's just kind of sending out signals and doing things and whatever. Right. I love the relationship piece. That's what coaching's all about to me. And he's trying to develop those relationships with his players. I love it. It's refreshing.
And he didn't just do a handful of up downs. I sat there and counted every single, and I think they actually ended up like someone was counting on microphone as well. They did 40 in probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 40 up down.
Love it.
And the head coach, now obviously he's a former player, and like you look at the guns on Dan Campbell, he's in pretty good shape himself. But he actually had his wrist taped because he was talking afterwards about how like he tripped over his dogs coming down the stairs at his house and he hurt his wrist. And so he had his wrist taped so he could do it. And, I just think, it's the Detroit Lions are a long suffering program. And I'm not saying this to be mean,
but is what it is, man.
I've said it before, is like, you deserve a medal if you're a Detroit Lions fan, and you've been a Detroit Lions fan for a long time, because there has just not been much there. And he's obviously trying to build buy-in and all that kind of stuff. And to watch the head coach, like, could you have imagined Jimmy Johnson ever doing, he couldn't do 4 up downs. Probably.
He'd mess up his hair.
Especially back when he was coaching.
Yeah.
Or like, could you even imagine Lou Holtz doing the up downs for that matter? Now Marcus Freeman, I could see Marcus Freeman doing the up downs.
He could and probably would.
I could see just about maybe anybody but Harry, on the staff doing the up downs. Harry's like, I got no time for that,
with a few other choice words. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. But yeah, I think it's awesome. And the fact that he was out there doing it right away, it's like the first day of practice.
Yeah.
Defense is out there and they're like, okay, up downs. And it's like, boom, here's the head coach, turned his hat around backwards, did 40 of them. Like I said, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. It was very impressive. He wasn't even breathing that hard afterwards, for that matter. So
I would be.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so I heard a podcast host say that he thinks they were talking about Vin Scully and, some of the big moments, Vin Scully had and stuff like that. He was saying he thinks that most play-by-play and game analysts would preferably know the outcome of the big plays, or moments in advance of them happening, because then they could be better prepared for those moments. And so now, Vince, you and I have called a lot of games together. Do you buy or sell that?
There are very few questions that you have asked me where it was an instant answer in my head. Okay. This is an instant sell for me, because the whole romance of the play-by-play. Okay. And I know that may be a cheesy word to use, but to me, it's an art. Play-by-play is an art, and it's all about the emotion of the moment. Okay. You can, and I don't know if you did this or not, because you called the national championship game with the women. And if they won the game, they win the national championship. If they lose, they don't. So you probably thought about what you were going to say ahead of time if they happen to win. But big plays in the moment, like, that's the best part of play-by-play. It's the in the moment emotion and the call, all of that. If you knew about it ahead of time, it would be so fake and it would be so rehearsed that I don't think that it would be any good. It's a huge sell for me. I hate it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I know that, there are some play-by-play announcers who, kind of jot down a few things like, if I get to this moment, this is, these
fine.
Are some, I've heard that. I've never even thought about, like, if this happens, here's what I'm going to say. None of that kind of stuff. Everything that I've ever done as a play-by-play announcer has been completely spontaneous, and it's all like free flow. And it's just, to me, as a play-by-play announcer, one of the big, not challenges, well, it can be a challenge, I guess, for some people, but one of the criteria that you have to meet is, how do you meet the moment?
Yes.
And I don't think you can meet the moment if it's not spontaneous, because then it comes out just sounding, cheesy, or, and I know Joe Buck has been accused of some of those things before, because, basically everybody loves to hate Joe Buck, but at the same, I think most of his have actually been spontaneous as well. And it's, again, like the national championship, or, like any of the big baseball calls from back in the day, everything has just been see it and say it. And, whatever pops into my tiny brain, that is what ends up coming out. And that to me is the fun of it, because again, if I would have tried to plan out some of that stuff or have it written down, or, like talk shows and stuff like that are different. You've got your notes and, even game notes, as you're going along. But in terms of what actually happens on the field, I would never want to know what's going to happen, because I think that's when you end up stumbling over your tongue and stuff like that, because then you're, again, it's kind of like what we've been talking about this week with, like mechanics and things like that. If you're thinking about it, it can't be natural.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
And one of the best parts about doing radio or play-by-play color, doing it with you and all of this different stuff is, number one, you and I are sports fans.
Right.
And one of the best things about sports is you don't know what's going to happen.
That's exactly right.
You don't play the game on paper. You got to play the game. And I don't know what's going to happen. And we're right there going right along with the ride, on the ride with the listener. And I think that's the best part about it, is we don't know what's going to happen. And we're going to tell you what happened. We're going to tell you what we see, and we're going to get excited with you, or we're going to be depressed with you, or whatever. I think that's some of the best part about doing radio, is we're all on the same ride. And if you know what's coming, that's just, I'm sorry, that's no good. It's no fun.
Not at all. Not at all. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Costco is selling pairs of football tickets for schools like South Carolina and Rutgers.
Oh, it's probably sad for those institutions, but at the same time, you know what? If I am a fan of those schools, or I am a player at those schools, I don't care how you get butts in the seats. I want people to watch me play, and I want people to come support me. So whatever you got to do to get them in the stands to cheer for my team, I am all for it. Look, we all love Costco. We're all there, and we're all impulse shoppers when we're there. And maybe there's a South Carolina fan and a Rutgers fan.
Football tickets.
Hey, you want to take in a game? Okay, let's go. And you grab it, and you throw it in, you get your card scanned, and you go.
You're going to go to Costco in New Jersey, and you walk down one of those aisles, and, I saw some pictures of these, they've got the card, and you pull out one of these cards, and on it says, 2 lower level sideline tickets, $99, a 38% savings per placard. Or I go to South Carolina, it says 2 upper level tickets for $89. I mean, you look at that alone, 2 lower level sideline tickets for $99. I mean, attendance has been down in college football,
right?
Across the board. And so I kind of give it to these schools for maybe thinking outside the box a little bit. It looks odd to think that you can go to Costco and, pluck a placard off the shelf over there and then go ring up a couple of tickets at the front register.
Placard.
But you got to do what you got to do. Like you said, you got to get butts in the seats. Yeah. And at least they're thinking outside the box a little bit to try to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, whatever you got to do to get people in the stadium to watch a game, you go ahead and do it. And this is a new time. This is a new generation of people. Some people aren't going to go out of their way to go buy tickets, and it might actually be just an impulse purchase. I don't think people are, maybe there are people like this, but I don't know if people are going to be like, where I can go get some tickets. I'm going to Costco. I think it's more like, hey, there's a really good deal on tickets. Let's go. Yeah.
Well, like you said, it's all these impulse buys to begin with.
Absolutely.
So, you're rolling into Costco, and if Costco, if you rolled in here in town and it was Notre Dame Marshall tickets or whatever,
Hey, I doubt that they're going to sell out Marshall at the ticket prices that I've seen, They could do worse.
I'd be giving it a shot. I think it's worth a shot. Marshall, UNLV, whatever it happens to be,
Absolutely.
the Western Michigan game. There's again. Do you want to sell them or not?
Fans. Let's get those rowdy fans. Let's get those Costco, buyers in there, man.
It's amazing. Like looking now again. You've still got COVID, so there are some other factors as well. But like that sellout streak wasn't that long ago. When that sellout streak ended, and now you've got patches all over the stadium that need to be filled. So
yeah, it was actually pretty bad last year. And again, you can blame some of that on COVID, and I totally understand that. But there were plenty of games that we went to where we looked out at game time, and there were a lot of empty seats. And that's just not, I've been going to games since 2004, and that's just not something that you saw, from the press box view. And it was a little disheartening, to be honest with you.
Brian makes a good point in the chat. Brian J. Irish, I hope we see more green than orange when Clemson visits. I'm getting tired of seeing so many visitor fans in the stands, because the last time Clemson came here, it was an empty stadium for the most part.
Just friends and family were in the stands, but that's it.
Yeah. Drunk Vigo. Do you need 5 kayaks?
DT Troll Hunter says, I just bought my 5th kayak at Costco. It's a great conversation going on.
Nice. All right. The Chicago Cubs have announced Jason Hayward will not be back with the team next season. Vince, they're going to release him in the offseason with 1 year, $22 million left on his contract. You're a Cubs fan. Do you buy or sell the move?
Look, I never understood the vitriol that Jason Hayward received from fans at times. The bottom line is, and I realize it's an albatross of a contract. I get that. Totally. They should not have paid what they paid to get him to come in. But, and here's the big but in this one, they don't win the World Series without Jason Hayward.
It's true.
And I am not willing to give back that World Series in 2016. And so if I'm not willing to give that back, then I'm not willing to be upset about Jason Hayward being with the Cubs. Okay. Now, with that said, I don't really have an issue with him letting him go. I realize they're going to be on the hook for a year's worth of salary. I hope that they go out and, get a competent replacement and all of those things that if you're a Cubs fan, you're hoping has or will happen here in the very near future. That they build up the roster again and all of those things. So I don't really have an issue. I mean, he's played out his usefulness to the team, and I get that. It's a business, so I don't really have a problem with that. I've just never understood everybody's hatred toward him. I've never had an issue. I think he's a great leader. Did he live up to his contract on the field? Probably not. But, again, you don't have the World Series without him. So you can consider me a Jay Hay fan.
No, I mean, that's fair. He was a contributor to the World Series team, and he gave the famous speech during the rain delay and all that stuff, and they go on to come back to beat Cleveland and win the World Series. Those are all true statements. It's just like Jason Hayward and his unwieldy contract have been in Chicago so long. He was there at the beginning of the first buildup, along with Rizzo and Bryant and Baez and all those young guys coming up, and now that same contract, he is still there for the teardown.
He's been there a long time.
That's right. And they're getting rid of him so they can build it back up once again. So they can make, way for these prospects and all this stuff. And it's, I get what you're saying to a point, because, just do the ends justify the means? Well, they won the World Series. That's all you want. They broke, the drought and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, if you're not stuck with Jason Hayward and his 22 to 25 million bucks a year for the last 4 years, maybe you're able to keep Rizzo and or Bryant, you probably are able to keep a couple of those guys around, and maybe you're not in a complete teardown mode right now. But at the same time, this is something that I was thinking about earlier in the season. Like, if he doesn't start producing and you've got all these prospects that you want to bring up, do you just say, hey, we're going to eat 22 million bucks and come what may, Jason, it's been great having you, but we've got to bring these prospects up. And that's That's what they ultimately are doing. And he's still going to get paid. He's going to get all that money still, and he's going to have a chance to go play someplace else. He'll make a lot less money, obviously, on the next contract. But, you're right. He's a great locker room guy, great team guy. He's done basically everything but perform at an elite level as an offensive player.
Right. Absolutely. And of course I wanted more on the field from him.
Stymie, Kyle Schwarber. Yeah, they could have.
He's still doing things, man. The other guys that kind of gone away or that they've traded away and all that, you haven't really heard from them, have you? Just saying.
Yeah, Rizzo is about the only one.
Yeah, I mean, he's contributing obviously for the Yankees, who are having an amazing year. He has another chance to get a ring. But Javi Baez up in Detroit, I think he's been injury prone. He still terrible at the plate. Haven't heard anything from Chris Bryant.
You hear nothing.
It's out on the mountain time, so I'm not going to hear a whole lot about him. But he's wasn't an all-star. I know that. So we'll see what happens here moving forward with the Cubs. But I don't have an issue with them getting rid of Jay Hay, unfortunately.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks again for sticking with us tonight. We had the technical difficulties at the beginning of the show, and appreciate you stopping by and jumping in. A lot of spirit in the old YouTube chat going on tonight, Vince. They're not arguing, but debating about a lot of different things. So it's been a lot of fun kind of watching that. Again, we're back at Notre Dame tomorrow morning, and then we'll be talking with Harry Hiestand and the offensive line, some of the offensive linemen anyway, afterwards, and then Al Washington and the defensive line Friday, then a Marcus Freeman press conference over the weekend. So we've got more stuff, as always, as training camp tomorrow wraps up week number 1. 7th day of camp tomorrow. All right, Vince, thanks as always.
You bet.
I will talk to you soon.
Yes, Monday.
Don't forget, hit that like button, rate, subscribe, review, all that good stuff. It helps out the Irish Breakdown platform. We will talk to you tomorrow. IB Nation Sports Talk will be back with you.